Termites have been on Earth for over 150 million years. Can you imagine how much wood they've destroyed in that time? And they're still at it. You know, it could be said that a termite's sole motivation in life is the acquisition of cellulose. Cellulose is a polysaccharide carbohydrate, the backbone of all vegetable matter, and said to be the most abundant organic compound on Earth. Wood contains approximately 50% cellulose. Cotton, over 90%. There's no building on the planet Earth that doesn't have cellulose in it in one form or another. I'm Jeff Tucker, entomologist with Whitmire Microgen Research Laboratories, and we're in the business of helping you protect your customers' home and possession from pests, including termites. You know, people have been trying to protect their possessions from termites for thousands of years. Originally, the best they could do was build their structures and store their goods in a manner in which termites couldn't gain access to them. Then about 50 years ago, with the development of synthetic organic insecticides, we developed the ability to create a barrier in the soil between the wood or cellulose in the structure and the termites in the ground. In the late 1980s, there was another major breakthrough that changed termite control forever with the development of termite baits. And now, we're ready to move into the next generation of termite baiting with the introduction of the advanced termite baiting system from Whitmire Microgen. This presentation will cover the components, installation, and service procedures of the advanced termite baiting system. Let's begin with the system components. Now, one of the most important features of the advanced termite bait system is that it contains a dual-stage feeding system. Let's take a look at the components of the system, and you'll better understand what I mean by dual-stage feeding. First, we have the termite bait station, or TBS. Second, the termite monitoring base, or TMB. The termite inspection cartridge, or TIC, and the termite bait cartridge, or TBC. The spider for opening the station, and a long handle version of the spider. Let's begin with the termite bait station. One of the first things you'll notice is that it's made of plastic, high impact, very durable, contains ultraviolet light inhibitors to keep the station from breaking down under intense sunlight. Another thing you'll notice in the bottom is a hole. This hole permits drainage so that water from rainfall or irrigation can drain out of the station quickly. The next thing, the most striking feature, I guess, are these vertical slots. They're all the way around the station. It's the only station in the market with vertical slots. There's over 12 square inches of open space. Now, the reason for that is we want it to be easy for termites to enter this station and begin feeding. Also, these slots are so wide that when we put the termite monitoring base, the wooden monitoring base in there, it actually creates wood-to-soil contact, the number one condition conducive to subterranean termites. Now, you'll also notice that there are fins right up here under the top of the station. There's several of them there. These are anti-rotation fins. When the station is inserted in the ground, it keeps the station from turning or twisting this way, which would certainly interrupt the feeding of subterranean termites. So these stabilize the station in place. Now, the next feature you'll notice is the top. This is the quick lock cap. You'll notice it's very low profile. Now, there is no way to open this quick lock cap easily unless you use the spider opening tool. Here's how it works. You simply place the spider on top of the cap and push down, locks in place. And then you turn a short turn to the left or counterclockwise, unlocking the quick lock tabs, and then simply remove the cap from the station. couldn't be easier. Now, let me show you something about the cap. First, you'll notice it remains on the spider so it doesn't get lost, labor-saving feature. And you'll notice that there is a barcode on the underside of every station lid. For those of you using bait tracking software programs, this will come in handy. Now, let's look at the next component of the system. This is the termite monitoring base. It's wooden, made of a highly preferred wood source that was selected by subterranean termites over other wood sources. You'll notice that it contains horizontal grooves, and these are there so that it's easy for the termites to enter and to begin feeding on an edge. Very important to get feeding established by termites. Comes in two parts. Makes it easy to get into the station and, when necessary, out of the station. This is the termite monitoring base. The next component is the termite inspection cartridge. Now, perhaps the first thing you'll notice is it has a green label on it. There is no active ingredient in here. It's made of plastic, contains holes in the bottom and the top, but no holes in the side. This is so that debris, soil, even moisture doesn't get in from the side. We want the termites entering from the bottom or the top or both and nothing else. Now, within the termite inspection cartridge are 3 compressed Puracell tablets containing 100% pure alpha cellulose. Here's what one looks like. Actually, this is the subject of most termites' desire in the world, pure cellulose. They're hard, kind of like wood. This is what termites basically spend their entire life trying to acquire. In the termite inspection cartridge, there is no active ingredient, just pure cellulose. This is, in fact, the second stage of the dual-stage feeding system. The wooden termite monitoring base was the first stage. Now, the next component is the termite bait cartridge. The label's a little different, not quite so much green. This cartridge contains, like the inspection cartridge, 3 compressed Puracell alpha cellulose tablets. Only in this case, they contain 0.25% diflubenzuron, the active ingredient. Again, plastic cartridge, holes in the bottom, holes in the top, and 3 tablets inside the cartridge. Only these contain the active ingredient. This replaces the termite inspection cartridge when you get a hit on the bait station. Now, let's assemble the station so you see how these fit together. We'll take the bait station and we insert the termite monitoring base. That goes in the bottom. First stage of feeding. Then we place a termite inspection cartridge. No active ingredient in this, as the second feeding stage on top of the termite monitoring base. And we affix the lid. Easily done. Put the quick lock tabs in place, a quick turn to the right or clockwise, and it's secure. Remove the spider, and the station's ready to go. Now, another great labor-saving feature. You don't have to assemble the stations. They come fully assembled. Another labor-saving feature in the field when you're out there trying to do an installation. Now, let's take a look at how termites actually enter the station, feed on it, exploit it, if you will. I have this cutaway version of the station to demonstrate that. Now, you'll remember the large vertical slots. When termites encounter the station, they immediately have access to the interior contents, the termite monitoring base with its horizontal grooves. They're touching the soil, literally. Termites move right into the termite monitoring base and begin feeding, the first stage of the dual-stage system. As they begin feeding, they bring mud in, and they'll mud it up. They'll actually fill these grooves with mud. You'll see tubes all over here, many of them extending upwards. the termites' natural behavior will cause them to move upwards. And when they do so, they'll contact the termite inspection cartridge and either move in directly through the holes in the bottom or travel up the side and move in through the holes in the top, or both. Once they do, they'll encounter the compressed Puracell cellulose tablets made of 100% pure alpha cellulose. They really begin feeding in here. And again, they'll bring a lot of mud in there. This mud may absolutely fill the inspection cartridge. And that's how termites exploit this bait system. Then, when you inspect the station and find that you have a hit, you simply remove the inspection cartridge and replace it with the bait cartridge. And that is the advanced termite bait system with dual stage feeding. Now that you've understood the components of the system, seen how they go together, and how termites exploit the station, let's go prepare for installing the advanced termite bait system. Now, before you install the advanced termite bait system, the first thing you do is the first thing you always do in any pest control program, an inspection. And when we're talking termites, we're talking about inspecting the exterior, perimeter, and the interior of this structure and drawing a diagram, an outline of the property. Now, what you want to be looking for around the outside, in addition to the construction features, are conditions conducive to subterranean termites and areas where you may want to place an advanced termite bait station, or areas where you don't want to place a bait station. Areas you want to stay away from: underground utilities, gas and electric. You don't want to put a bait station right under a downspout from gutter system. You also don't want to put a bait station right under the drip line from a central air conditioning system. There may be other places. It'll depend on the part of the country you're in. So you have to become familiar with the exterior perimeter of the property first before you do anything, and then draw the diagram. Once you're done with that, you're almost ready to begin installing bait stations. But first, there are some tools we're going to have to use during the installation process. Let's take a look at them. Now, before we install termite bait stations, there are a couple of tools you need to be familiar with. The first one is the soil auger. Now, there are manual augers available, and these are used by hand, but I don't recommend them, particularly if you're installing a lot of bait stations. You need one of these, a gasoline-powered auger. This is an Echo unit. There are many other manufacturers. Check with your distributor about their recommendation. You're also going to need a soil auger bit to put in the gasoline-powered auger. This is a 2.5-inch bit available from AMS Sampler. Also check with your distributor for their recommendation on these bits. You're of course going to need your bait stations. You may also need safety equipment. I recommend, if you're using a gas-powered auger, wear eye protection. And while you're at it, wear ear protection. If you're drilling a lot of holes, those gas-powered augers get noisy. You may find that gloves are also helpful, particularly when you have wet soil. You may also want to use a tape measure. When you first get started, it's helpful to check your distance from the wall of the house, how far out you're placing the stations, and check those 10-foot intervals to also see that they're consistent. This is handy. Fits on your belt. It's one less tool you have to carry around. And a permanent marker. Now, what I use permanent markers for are to mark numbers on the stations. You may want to do that in addition to using the barcoding system under the lid. You'll also want to read and understand the complete label instructions for the advanced termite baiting system. And finally, you'll want to have a copy of the advanced termite baiting system installation and service guide. And then you'll be ready to install the advanced termite bait station. Let's do it. Now I've just placed these stations about 30 inches out at 10-foot intervals. Now why did I do that? Well, first let's check the distance from the wall. Yep, we're right on 30 inches. And I think my calculations were correct. We're right on 10-foot intervals. Now, is there any magic to that placement? Well, it's not magic, but it's common sense. First, let's take a look. I don't want my station directly below the drip line. I don't want rainwater falling right on my station and waterlogging it. So I want them outside that zone. I also don't want them up next to the structure. This area down here is where liquid termiticides are applied. And we don't know, this house may have received treatment in the past. So we don't want to put our station right here where it may be interfered with by a former liquid termiticide treatment. Now there's no magic to 10 feet. In a house like this, which may not have termites and you're doing a preventive treatment, 10 feet is fine, and actually that's our recommended best practice. There may be situations where you need to go greater than 10 feet. The label permits up to 20 feet. There may even be cases where you have to move around a 10-foot interval. For example, if there's a gas line here or an electric line, you don't want to drill there, we're going to have to go on either side of that. Also, if you have a drip line from an air conditioner condenser, for example, you don't want the station right under the drip line. Again, your station will get waterlogged. Another condition might be the downspout from a guttering system. If it came down here and discharged in this area, no way we want the station right at the discharge point where we get water logging the station every time it rains. So we move it. We go on either side of that. So there's some flexibility in this station placement. But for good practice, under normal circumstances, one station every 10 feet around the exterior perimeter of the property, except where conditions mitigate against using that 10-foot interval. Then you go on either side. Now, we've got our stations in place. I actually cheated a little bit. I used a black marker. When I measured this off, I put a small black tick mark right there. No one will see it unless you draw their attention to it. It's real helpful on finding those stations again, particularly if the turf has grown over them in the interval since you checked it last time. So it looks to me like we're ready to drill our holes. Let's do it. Well, now you see how to drill the holes. Let me tell you a little bit about what I was doing. You'll notice I moved the drill up and down a little bit while I was drilling. The reason for that is so that as I'm drilling, I'm pulling the dirt out of the hole. The last thing you want is to drill a hole, pull the bit out, and all the dirt fall back in again. So if you pull, it causes the dirt to flow out around the outside of the hole. Another little trick I learned, when you get to the bottom, as deep as you're going to go, let off of the gas. Let the bit come to a stop, then extract the bit at the very end, and you'll find that you get less fallback down in the hole. Now, how deep was I drilling these holes? I don't know if you noticed, but this was a clay gumbo type soil. It doesn't drain very well, and where you have that type of a soil, you want to drill your holes 2 to 4 inches deeper than the bait station so that you've created a little sink, if you will, or a little trap where that rainwater can drain down into so it doesn't waterlog your station. Tell you what, we'll drill one more right here. I'll show you again how it's done. You notice how a lot of that last of the soil stayed right here on the drill bit? I've got a clean hole down in there now. Now, you may wonder, what about all this soil that's mounded up around here? Here's what I recommend. Another reason for the gloves, push it away from the hole. Scatter it out in the turf. There may be places or conditions where they want that soil removed for neatness sake, but in most cases you can just scatter the soil out like this. Now you're ready to install the advanced termite bait station. Remember, it has these fins on it here. These are the anti-rotation fins. So you want to get this seated well down into the turf. Now where you have thick turf, there is a plug cutter accessory available for this soil auger that will actually cut a plug of the turf out so that you've got pure soil there that you're seating the termite bait station into. So the idea is to put the station right there and press it in. Now it's perfectly okay, if it's tight, to stand up and use your foot to seat the station the rest of the way. Remember I said earlier, it's a station designed to take a lot of torture. That station can take the foot poundage you put on it very easily. So now we've got it way down in the turf. As a matter of fact, it's below the top of the turf. So that if they come in here and mow the grass, it's not going to damage this station at all. Again, if the turf is too thick, you may want to investigate using that plug cutter to cut out a plug of that turf. And that's all there is to putting these stations in the ground. Now I will mention that occasionally you will have to put a station in where there may be concrete or asphalt. And under those circumstances, it takes a special piece of equipment, a core cutting machine, in order to core down through the concrete so that you can install a bait station at that location. You'll want to check with your Whitmire Microgen Regional Technical Representative for more information about how to go about doing that. So there they are, the installed bait station. I'm going to go back here and install the rest of these. Then we'll talk a little bit about servicing the station. Now that we've installed the advanced termite bait system, the question comes up, how long does it take to service the system? Time me. Check your watch. Go. There. How long did that take? I have about 20 seconds. Now, granted, most of the time it's going to take a little longer than 20 seconds, but you can see it's very easy to do, very quick. Utilizing the long-handled spider, the cotter pin remover, which we'll talk more about in a moment, you can check these stations very efficiently. Now, obviously, you're going to run into some other conditions when you're out in the field checking the advanced termite bait system. Let's take a look at some of the ones you're likely to encounter. Now, how do we go about servicing the advanced termite bait system? Here we have a station that's been in the ground a couple of months, 3 months as a matter of fact, and we're going to service it. We're going to see if anything's going on in there. You're going to need two primary tools. First, a spider. This is the smaller handheld version. You remember seeing the longer, long-handled spider. Either one will work fine. Then you're going to need this little tool. It's called a cotter pin remover or extractor. You can get them at any hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, anything like that. A couple of bucks. Has a little bend in it, a sharpened point, perfect for extracting the contents of the bait station. So let's look at the scenario. How do we do it? Come up to a station, take your spider, install it, turn, remember it's to the left counterclockwise, and remove. Now as soon as you do that, place it down and look at it. See if you can see any mudding over of the top of the inspection cartridge or around the sides. Sometimes you will. Then take your cotter pin remover and slowly extract the cartridge the inspection cartridge from the station and examine it, the bottom, the top, the inside, to see if you can see evidence of termite feeding. Again, you may see live termites, termite tubes, a lot of mud brought in here. A couple of other conditions may occur. You may see that the tablets in there have swollen, have transformed into a mass. There's nothing wrong with that. We expect that to happen, and termites will feed on it just as readily. But as you look in there, you may see in that tablet mass little tunnels through there, and sometimes with termites actually in them, as well as the mud that they bring up into this second stage of the dual stage feeding system. Now, when you look down into the station, you'll see the termite monitoring base. Under most circumstances, you leave it there. Don't remove it. Leave it in place. That's the first stage of the dual system. We want that to be a low disturbance area where termites basically feel safe. They won't abandon the station. They can go in there and remain there while you're servicing the station. Let me show you what a termite monitoring base looks like that's been in an active station. Here you can see the tubes on the outside, tubes in this location, and even tubes on the inside going up towards the second stage, the termite inspection cartridge. They've mudded over the horizontal grooves in there as well. Sometimes they'll feed on this thing and it'll be totally eaten up. Under those circumstances, you would replace the termite monitoring base. However, under usual use, only about once a year is all that's necessary to replace this. Again, it will depend on conditions in your particular area. Now, real important, this is the refuge, stage 1 of the dual feeding system. Termites move into this either from the surrounding territory or back into it from the termite inspection cartridge. Leave it alone. Leave it down in the station. This is the second stage, the termite inspection cartridge. When you get a positive hit here, you simply remove it, and now it's time to replace it with the termite bait cartridge. Again, packed in plastic so that it doesn't become contaminated prior to use. Tear the packaging off and remove the bait cartridge. Now this cartridge contains 93 grams of bait. It's the highest bait load currently in the industry of any bait tube or bait cartridge system. And it also contains 0.25% diflubenzuron, the active ingredient. Now it's time to do the switch. We took out the inspection cartridge. We're going to install the bait cartridge. Now let me give you a quick pointer. The advanced termite bait system permits direct baiting. If circumstances are such that you do not feel that the use of the inspection cartridge followed by the bait cartridge is appropriate in your particular circumstances, you can, upon installing the system, bait it directly. That is permitted on the label. But in this particular case, say we have a hit here, we place the bait cartridge in. Oh, by the way, before we close it up, there's a barcode on there. If you're using bait tracking software like the PestClick system, which Whitmire Microgen recommends, then you want to scan the bait cartridge before you put it in. Also remember the barcode under the cap, also scan it, place the lid on, lock it in place, and you're done. That's all there is to servicing a typical hit with the advanced termite bait system. Now, if we hadn't had a hit, and this was just a regular station, we'd remove the lid, extract the termite inspection cartridge, examine it. If we didn't have any evidence of termite activity, there was none down in the termite monitoring base, everything else was all right, we'd replace the inspection cartridge, reattach the lid, and move on to the next station. That's it. Now, let's take a look at a few special circumstances that may come up while you're servicing the bait stations. Let's look at a couple of other situations you may encounter when using the advanced termite bait system. One of the questions that comes up is, can I spot treat in conjunction with the advanced termite bait system? The answer to that is yes. If on the inside of the house you have active termites, Doesn't matter if you spot treat in there with a liquid, a gel, a foam, whatever. It's not going to affect what you've installed on the exterior perimeter with the advanced termite bait system. So go ahead. It's perfectly all right to spot treat inside the home. Now, another issue that comes up on occasion, we'll open this station and take a look. When you examine the termite inspection cartridge, or in some cases the bait cartridge, you may see on the surface of the tablets a light green or darkish surface mold. The question is, do I need to replace the inspection cartridge? No, you do not. Those light green and dark surface molds will not affect termite feeding at all. Have no impact on it whatsoever. Don't worry about it. Now, in rare cases, particularly where the station has been installed in an excessively wet location, you may find that the tablet mass has become wet and enveloped in a slime mold. Some of them are reddish in color and smell bad. If you find that condition, then you're probably best off replacing the termite inspection cartridge. If it's also gotten onto the termite monitoring base, you may want to replace that also. But it usually only occurs where the station has been installed in an area that it shouldn't be in the first place because it's way too wet. Now, what happens with moisture? If you look down in a station and there's standing water and it hasn't rained in a week, there's no irrigation around, you may have that station in some very low or slow draining soils, usually have a lot of clay in them. And under those circumstances, having that much water in the station tells you the station's in the wrong place. There's only one solution to that: move it. Find a better drained location. Water in the station sitting constantly is not good for the station, and trust me, termites aren't going to forage in that area either. Now, when you go about servicing a station, particularly if you're on your annual service, you know, it's been about a year and you want to replace the wood monitoring base, perhaps, the station may have a lot of debris in it. And if it's got some soil down in there and it needs to be cleaned out, there's two ways to do that. If it's an inactive station, no termites, you can actually remove the station from the ground, shake it out to clean it out and replace it. But if there are termites in it or around, you do not want to do that. Better at that point using the clean out auger. There is a small auger available from AMS Sampler that you attach to a battery-operated drill and use it to clean the station out. Very simple, very quick. Then you replace the termite monitoring base and the termite inspection cartridge. Now, one more condition that may come up, particularly in the south, but it can occur anywhere, and that's with ants. Ants will sometimes move under the station and even into it. For those of you that work in areas where fire ants are a problem, well, you know what I'm talking about. It's going to happen sooner or later. So what do you do about that? You do not want ants, any kind of ant, nesting in, on, under, or around a termite bait station. So here's what we recommend as a best practice at Whitmire Microgen. We recommend the use of advanced 375A select granular ant bait. Now, you can take this product and sprinkle it around the bait station like this. If you've got fire ants, odorous house ants, Argentine ants in here, you don't need to put it on the station and you don't put it in the station. You put it around the station. So you have a mound of ants up against the foundation here. You bait over here. But you bait the general area. You should do it on installation if you notice ants foraging there. And when you're doing your regular service of your installation, you should carry this product with you, Advanced 375A, to take care of those ant conditions when they come up. And trust me, they will. Happens to everybody. Now, next question. How often do I have to service the advanced termite bait system? Good question. Let's talk about it. So, how often do we service the advanced termite bait system? Well, I have three things to tell you about that. First, good news for some of you. The label on the Advanced Termite Bait Cartridge permits direct baiting. In other words, when you install the system, you can skip the termite inspection cartridge and go directly to the termite bait cartridge if that's the appropriate thing to do. It's not the right choice for every circumstance, and actually most circumstances should not be direct baited, but you have that flexibility with this system. Now, let's get to the inspection frequency. Let's take a look at this diagram. You have two conditions that can exist. One, the house is infested with termites or has signs of termite activity, or it does not have active termites or any signs of termite activity. Each of those has a little bit different frequency. Let's take a look at them. If this house has termites, when you install the system, your first inspection will come 45 days after the date of installation. Your second inspection will come after an additional 45 days. Then, your next inspection, or your third inspection, will come 90 days after the second inspection and 90 days thereafter for as long as the system is in the ground. If the house does not have an active infestation or signs of termites, after the date of installation, your first inspection will be at 90 days, or approximately 3 months after initial installation date, and thereafter every 90 days, or quarterly for some of you. So you have two basic conditions. The house is infested or it isn't infested. If it is, your first inspection after installation, 45 days. Your second inspection after another 45 days. And from that point on, it's every 90 days for the rest of the time the system is in the ground. No termites, inspections are on 90-day frequencies. Not hard to remember. So there you have it, the Advanced Termite Baiting System. What could be better? For the technician, ease of service, a quarterly bait load, a very easily accessible bait station, easy to service, quick to service, and a dual stage feeding system from the Advanced Termite Bait System.